everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be sewing the Squig Skirt in view B. Now I'm going to take you through the pattern pieces that I've already cut out and share with you a couple of notes that will help you during the process before we start sewing. Now for view B, that means that we will have a ruffle running through this style line right here. So I've cut out 8 of my ruffle pieces on the fold. So you can see I've got all 8 of those there. I'm going to just pop them here because we're going to use those pretty soon. Then I've cut out 2 on the fold for the waistband, and we're going to set that one to the side over here because we don't need those yet. Then we've got 4 cut out mirrored for the squig pocket. Put that over there. Now here is the important notes, so pay close attention. You are going to be cutting out 4 of skirt panel A and 4 of skirt panel B. That means these are not mirrored, so you are going to actually cut them out how you see right here. It will look like this, and it will look like this for this piece. Now I had fabric restraints, so I actually had to cut 2 of these mirrored, but they will still work. And that's the beauty of this pattern. There's hacks also included in the pattern itself, so that if you don't want any of these straight lines in your design, there are notes on that, on how to create that. So for this tutorial, I have cut out 4 and 4, and I have made sure that panel A is this like little beautiful gingham so that you don't lose track of my panel A, and panel B is this floral, okay? And then you really want to make sure you mark all your notches. So you've got notches here on your curve style lines to help you line them up. Then you've got a single notch at the top of each of these pieces so that you don't lose track of the top of your skirt. And then you've got double notches down here to indicate the bottom. Okay, once you've done all that and you've cut out all your pieces, we can get started. First up, we are going to do the ruffles. So we can put our skirt pieces to the side for now. We will bring those back once our ruffles are done. So you have 8 here cut on the fold. These are going to go in 4 locations in your skirt because you have cut out 4 of each of the panel pieces. So these work in pairs. So these 2 cut on the fold, these 2 cut on the fold, these 2, and these 2. So you can see I've got 4 lots. Now what you're going to do for these is you're going to take the right side of each one of these, and you're going to pin and sew one of the short edges with a 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then you're going to press that open. You're going to do that for all 4 of these pairs, and then once you've done that, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we are back from the machine and the ironing board, and you can see here I've got a really long strip now that we've joined up in the middle and pressed open like that. So the next step is we are going to grab these ruffle pieces and we are going to fold them with the wrong sides together like so, and we're going to press it down. And I've always wanted to say this. Here's something I prepared earlier. I've pressed it down already for this one. So you can see this is my wrong side. Sorry, I should have picked a better fabric for the ruffles. I didn't think of that. This is the wrong side, you can see, because of the raw edges here inside. And then I've gone ahead and pressed it like that. And then, hold up, something I prepared earlier. I've done the gathering stitches. I switched the thread here so you guys could see, and I wanted to make a note about the ruffle and the gathering. Some people do not like removing the stitches. They find it tedious, annoying. I know we've all been there. You have to kind of be in the mood. So you can also put your basting stitches close together within the 1 centimeter 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and that way you don't have to remove them. The reason I like to do my basting stitches like this is because when you gather it, it gives you like this little channel here that you're going to follow with your seam allowance, and it ensures that you're grabbing essentially both layers that we've pressed together and you're keeping your ruffles uniform. across the squiggle. So that's up to you, but there's a little tidbit for you if you don't like to spend time taking out gathering stitches. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat what I've done for this piece to the other 3, and then we'll be able to start assembling the skirt. Okay, now that I've gone ahead and done all my ruffles with the basting stitch, we get to start the fun part. Now I've grabbed one panel A, one panel B, and at this part with the ruffles for view B, you have to decide what way you want your ruffle to face. If you want it to face this way, you're going to baste it to this side. If you want it to face this way, you will baste it to this side. For me personally, I like it to be facing this direction, so I'm going to baste it to this side. Now, to start that, we're going to just put this panel over here. And oh, I should note, if you are making view A, you're just going to go ahead and join these pieces together. But we're doing the ruffle, so we are going to do that first. So I'm going to measure 2 centimeters down from this edge here. So about here, like that. And then the same from the bottom, like that. And that is where my ruffle is going to start and end. This helps us reduce the bulk when we're hemming and when we're putting in the waistband. Once again, you don't need to do this. I just recommend it so you don't have to run into, you know, bulky issues. And now what you're going to do is you're just going to pin right there, so you can see it's starting from where I've put my little mark. And then you're going to do the same, and make sure this is not twisted, okay? You want to keep that straight. And then we're going to place it on the other mark here. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull on my gathering threads right here. And you're going to pull that to gather it, see? And you're going to do that until this ruffle matches this edge. And once you've done that, you will baste it in place. Let's do it. Okay, now that we have pinned that to our chosen side, I'm going to go through between these 2 basting stitches, and I'm going to baste the ruffle to this panel piece. The reason we do that is so that our ruffle doesn't get muddled up when we are going to put these pieces together. So I'm going to do that, and then once we do that, we get to form our first panel. Okay, I've come back from the machine and I have basted my ruffle. I like to baste really close to the first basting stitch, so you can barely see it, but it's right there, because that way it's still in the seam allowance, so I don't need to take it out later, which is always a plus. Okay, so this is my panel B, and that's how it's looking. Next, we're going to grab panel A, and we are going to match up these notches, and then we're going to ease in the curves. And then you're just going to sew that in place, and your first panel, your first A and B panel will become one. Okay, now that I've gone ahead and pinned that, you can see what that looks like, and I just wanted to make a note about these ends. So you can see here it's squared off like that, and that is to make sure that once we've sewn it, it's like forming a straight line. So what you do there is you're going to bring this corner right here to this first corner right there. And you're just going to pin that in place like that. Okay, now I'm going to sew this together and I'll come back once I've done that. Okay, I'm back from my machine and you can see here that I have sewn both panels together and the ruffle is sandwiched in between. So we turn this to the right side. Look how pretty it is. So now this is panel A, this is panel B with the ruffle together, and now you've created one of the 4 panels. So what we've just done, now to finish this off, I'm just going to finish this edge with my serger, and then I am just going to repeat the same process 3 more times, and then I'll come back once I've done that. Oh, and there's one other thing I forgot to mention. You can do top stitching. It's optional. I like to do it because I feel like it kind of keeps that ruffle facing the direction I like it to. But I also had my testers who just left it like that and it looked really cute because it gives that 3D effect. So that is optional. I'm undecided on what I'm going to do. I feel like I'm going to do all my other panels first before I decide if I'm going to top stitch or not. If you do opt to top stitch, all you need to do is you just need to press your seam like so, and you will remove those basting stitches there, and you will just go ahead and top stitch there, and that's it. Okay, we are back and we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 panels all done and ready to go together. 2 panels make the front and 2 panels make the back. Now I want to make a little note here because I had fabric restraints, so that is why my fabric is the same here and different on the sides. These are still panel A, panel B, panel A, panel B. If you've cut it according to the instructions, your panels would look like this. Let me just turn it the other way. They would look like that if you were using 2 different fabrics. But because of the way that I had to cut mine looks that way, and I just wanted to make that note because there is a hack page. So even though I'm showing you how to make view B, there are so many different variations you can make with the fabric that you use. So that is why it's important to mark your notches and not lose track of your tops. So there you go, you can see that's the top, and you can see that these are the bottom. If you really make a mistake, these panels work interchangeably. So if you really want, you can just turn it around and create it like that. I'm actually excited to try this out. A few of my testers had cut these on the fold like that, and so I'm kind of excited to try mine out this way. And I decided to not top stitch, so I'm just gonna leave those kind of like doing their own little 3D thing, which is super fun. Okay, so next step, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, is to create our front and back panels. So I'm gonna take this panel here, and then I'm going to put these right sides together, and I'm just gonna pin down the edge here, like so. And then I'm gonna repeat that with these 2. And then I'm going to pick which one I like better because I've used different fabrics, and see which one I want as the front and which one I want as the back. Okay, we're back from the sewing machine, and look at that, we have 2 panels. Super exciting. So now the next part is, oh, I totally forgot. I stitched it with 1 centimeter, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance here, and then I finished it with my serger overlocker. You don't need to serger it. It is up to you if you want to do a zigzag stitch, if you don't have a serger. However you want to finish that is up to you. So now that I've got these 2 panels, it is time to put in the pockets. So we're gonna grab our pocket pieces. I have that right here. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna go to my serger and I'm gonna finish the outer edge of each pocket. So just going all the way around here. So you're going to finish only this outer edge and leave this edge still raw and this edge still raw. And once I've done that, I will come back. Now that I've finished all the edges of my pockets, I'm ready to attach them to both skirt pieces. You can see right here how I was very low on fabric for this. And so they're different pattern pieces. Don't let that confuse you. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to take the right side of our pockets and we are going to match them up to the top edge. So make sure with your notches, see, that's why we need to mark them, to make sure we know where the top is. And you're going to match that up just like that. You're going to pin that in place. So I'm just going to do that. Just go 1 and 2. And you're going to repeat that with all the other pockets, the other 3. And then once you've done that, you are going to stitch all the way down here to the edge of the pocket with 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. And then we will finish this edge in our chosen method. So for me, I'm going to serge it. And then we can get started on actually putting the whole skirt together. Yay! Now that we have the pockets attached, you can see that I have finished the edge on that side, and then I've taken it to my ironing board and I've pressed it away from the main skirt piece, and then you can see that the seam allowance is also facing that direction. So I'm going to take it back to my machine and then I'm going to edge stitch right here, really close to that edge right there, and I'm going to do that and repeat that across all 4 pockets. And by 4 pockets, I mean the individual pocket pieces because we haven't put them together yet. There will only be 2 pockets. But hey, if you like 4 pockets, I'm not against it. Okay, who's ready for the magic? All right, we have now edge stitched each pocket. So let me hold that up so you can see that there. And it's caught the seam allowance on the other side, so that's perfect. Now what we're going to do, we're going to actually build the skirt, okay? So we're going to set it out like this, 1 panel right side facing up, and then you're going to get your other one. And this is where you make sure you're grabbing your tops. There they are, there's the notches, there they are. And you're going to match right sides together, like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pin, starting at the top of the pocket, outer edge right here. We're going to pin all the way around like that, and then continue down to the hem. And we're going to do that on both sides. Once you've pinned that, you're going to sew it with 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we will come back for the next part. We are getting so close. Okay, there's only 2 more steps for the pockets, and then it's just the waistband and hemming, and we're done. Okay, all the hard things are done, guys. Okay, now the next step for the pocket to complete it is we don't want it flapping open like that, right? So we are going to do a stitch right here close to the seam. So you see where those pockets meet right there? We're going to this side of the seam right here, okay? And the way we do that is we're going to measure 2 inches down from the top, like that. I'm gonna stick a little mark right there, and then you're just gonna take it to your machine, and you're gonna stitch from the top to that marking right there and back stitch. And that way it will close up the top of the pocket and that will leave the opening there. Once we do that, we have one more step for the pocket and we can move on to the waistband. Now that we have done that stitch right here, oh my goodness, you've got to look really closely, right? But then if you open it from this side, you will see that your pocket has a nice little opening now. It's not open up the top. So the last part for the pocket now, and this is where it's important for you to have chosen which one is your front and which one is your back. Let me see, which one am I going to choose? I'm going to choose this one as my front. And you're going to bring your pocket towards your front panel, okay? So you're going to bring it towards the front panel, and then you're going to baste this to the front panel like so, and do the same on the other side. Push it to the front panel and baste it there. Now, one of our testers brought up a really great suggestion here, which is after you baste it, if you have used a thicker material, you can grade that down. What that means is cut it down, not through the seam allowance, but like about an 1/8 or a 1/4 of an inch away from the seam allowance when we basted it. And that will help minimize bulk there. I've used a really thin lightweight, so I'm not going to do that, but it's good to know if you are finding that once you've basted that together, it's just too thick. All right, let's do that, and then we can move on to the waistband. We are on the last steps, yay! So, the skirt now portion is complete for this part, and we're going to set it to the side while we prepare our waistband. I'm going to grab our waistband here. Here we go. I cut 2 on the fold, and what we're going to do is similar to when we made our ruffles. I'm going to take the short end and I'm going to pin it. Oh, gee whiz. I'm going to pin it here, but not similar to our ruffles. We're also going to pin it on the other short end, and that way you will be making yourself a loop, right? So pin this here, pin this here, and then you're going to sew both sides down with 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then you're going to press it open, and then we will come back. Okay, confession, I was a little bit of a brat and I did the next step without telling you first. So I've now sewn up the short ends and I've pressed the seam allowance like so. And then the next step is to pick one of the long edges and to fold it in wrong sides together by 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. So you can see that I've done that here, like so. Okay, so now we're gonna bring back our skirt, but we are going to put it to the right side. So let's turn this inside out. Like so. And then let's see, where is my front piece at? Over here, because I basted my pockets there. There we go. Okay, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to take the raw edge that we did not press in, so this one up here, and we're going with right sides. I'm going to put it like that, and then we are going to pin the raw edge of this waistband to the top raw edge of the skirt all the way around. Okay, now that we've gone ahead and pinned that in place, a couple of notes before you go ahead and stitch the waistband to the skirt. Number 1, with view B with the ruffles, you want to make sure you've caught them in here. Okay, like they're sandwiched in there. This one obviously gonna have no problem sandwich that in, but for ones that may look like this, you can see how it's not all the way up to the edge, right? But if you are sewing that at a 1 centimeter seam allowance, it's going to catch that. So you just want to take care and make sure that you've gotten that there, okay? Lastly, before you sew, if you would like to put in a tag, now would be a great time to baste it in place in the back part of your skirt. I like to personally do mine after we've folded over the waistband and then I put it in, or I like to put it on the waistband. So it's up to you, but if you would like to use a tag, now is a great time to baste it in place. All right, now those notes are out of the way, you're going to take this to the sewing machine and you're going to sew all the way around with a 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you are then going to press it upwards. Okay, I'll come back once I've done that. It's looking like a skirt, so exciting. Okay, so you can see that I've attached the waistband here like so. Then I took it to my ironing board and I pressed the waistband up, and I made sure the seam allowance was also pressed up, because in the next step we want to enclose this raw edge right here. Okay, so this is where we're going to stitch the ditch. A lot of people have mixed feelings about stitching the ditch, but I tell you, if you are one of those people who's nervous about it, I suggest getting some Wonder Tape. It's wonderful. You can literally just put it here, and then it's like double-sided tape, and then you can press it down and then take it to your machine and stitch it from the right side. And then once you wash it, it disappears. It's fabulous. Okay, I don't have any Wonder Tape right now, so I'm gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that folded edge that we ironed previously, we're going to place it just about, I'd say, 1/4 of an inch over that seam line that you see right there that we just stitched to attach the waistband. Okay, so you're going to do that, and then you're going to pin it from the front. Now, if you're not confident enough just pinning it and then stitching all the way around, I also do suggest basting it first. So do your longest stitch length and then baste it all the way around, and then you can double check that you have grabbed the waistband from the inside, and that's always like a foolproof way of doing it. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin that all the way around on the outside, and then I'm going to stitch it down. You need to keep a small opening though, because that is where elastic goes, and this is where I said I like to put my tag afterwards. So I like to keep the back opening here. Usually I use the top notch markings that we had as reference points, so I will just like extend that mark here so I can still see it, and I will just stitch from here all the way around and stop here so that I can leave that as an opening to insert the elastic. Okay, now that I've pinned that all the way around, I'm going to show you from the front side. This is the ditch right here. So you can see where the skirt fabric meets the waistband. That there is the ditch. So your aim is to get as close as you can in that ditch while still catching the waistband at the back. Okay? That's where Wonder Tape works wonders. Hence Wonder Tape. All right, I'm gonna go take this to the machine, and once again, do not forget to keep an opening somewhere in here, okay? Because if not, you're not gonna get your elastic in, and we don't want that. Okay, the ditch has been stitched. So here you go. You can barely see it. That's why people actually like stitching the ditch. I know I was, pooping on it before, but there you go. And then you can see that it has caught the waistband in the back as well. And then I have left my opening right here in the back, which once I put in my elastic, I will put my tag in there and stitch that closed. All right, so now we're ready for elastic insertion. Now I've put recommendations in the pattern for each size. However, I do believe the best way to work out your elastic is to measure where you would like to wear it on your body, and then cut about 1.5 to 2 inches off of that. And that usually is a sweet spot. But I also encourage you to put it in, try it on before you stitch this shut, and then check that you actually like it. Now, if you are opting to do the top stitch all the way around after you've done your elastic, I do recommend going a little bit smaller with your elastic because it will stretch when you're doing the top stitching. All right, let's get started on the elastic. Okay, I have gone ahead and inserted my elastic, as you can see, cinched it in. I tried it on a couple of times to see where I wanted it, and then I just stitched it in here. I like to use a zigzag stitch to finish my elastic. And now we're on the last steps, which is you're going to close up this opening here, and this is where I slide in my tag as well. So if you've chosen to wait to put your tag in, now would be the time. And then you've got two options to finish the waistband. You can top stitch all the way around twice, and that way it prevents it from rolling. However, if you're not using super sturdy elastic, this is a no roll that I've used, you could run the risk of stretching your elastic out too much, and usually it fixes itself if you've washed it or if you steam it. But if you don't want to take that chance, you don't need to top stitch. What you're going to do is you're going to mark one little mark here, one little mark here, one at the back and one at the front, and you're just going to tack it. Now, tacking is just a little stitch in here, same color as your waistband, and that way it will prevent your elastic from rolling. That is it for the waistband, so I'm going to go do that. And then lastly, we hem it, and that's really simple. You're just going to press that to the wrong sides together, and then again by 1 centimeter each time, so a total of 2 centimeters. And you're going to press that up, and then we're done. I'll come back and show you my finished product.